monster. Like, I just couldn't wrap my brain around it at first, that Paul was okay with it because, his parents did it, his cousin's doing it, he did it, but he was okay with it. And that to me is huge, that he can, see past himself.
Sure.
And, say to his son, it's okay. I get it. It's not for you.
This business is not for everybody.
Absolutely. Paul, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
I have a grandson. Maybe he'll be the one.
There you go.
Sure.
Especially since he's been in wrestling clothes since infant.
I got to tell you, Paul Perez seems like an even-keeled human being, and I won't do this for long. I want to keep talking about Paul Perez and his journey. But Paul Perez, I got to tell you something. As even-keeled as you are, I think you'd probably lose it if you had this guy around for a couple of days. He's already ready. He's already cut him off. You see that?
Bring him harmony and inner peace is what I
Look at the disrespect. I bring you in for a millisecond and you're already yapping. For a millisecond. Paul Perez, what would you able to do? Paul, would you see potential if Howard walked into your school? I know Paul Roma's answer because we've covered this about 20 times on this show, and Paul Roma gives me the same answer, which I love. That's consistency, baby. But Paul Perez, if Howard Collato's walking into your school and he's actually asking you to train him, he stands up and you still think he's sitting down because he's about 4'6", what would you tell Howard Collato in that instance?
Well, they do have midgets, but you can't underestimate anybody. You really can't. You don't know what athletic potential they have or their ability to tell a story.
No, Howard can't tell a story.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that.
He can't. He's really not. Huh? He was supposed to babysit David Holliday's son one day and give him nursery. He couldn't even tell a story properly. Howard Collato, what do you want right now? You're on the broadcast.
Well, first I just want to say hi, Paul. It's awesome to Paul number 2. I'm sorry. Awesome to have you on here.
Thanks, it's great being here.
Who gives you the right to call him Paul number 2? Yeah, that's an inside joke between PAPW brethren. What gives you the right to say that, Howard Collato?
You did.
I said you can call him Paul number 2.
You did. You just texted me.
Howard Collato, we've seen enough of your face. This is the second segment that you've sullied. Yes, you have with your appearance. Read some comments over here. Gus Anselmo, it's all about our viewers. Thanks for sharing the truth, Paul. Great as always with the Roma Rebellion or Roma Rebels. Love that. Hector Alacaron, Avi the hater. I don't hate talent. I hate people that aren't. So that's why I hated on Howard. JC Farina. Paul, who was your toughest opponent and who do you love to work with? That's Paul Perez. Yeah, who was your toughest opponent? Who was the guy you like to work with?
Who did I like to work with? I liked working with the Big Boss Man and Dusty. Actually, before the match, talked to him for like 45 minutes. We had like a 30-second match, but talked to him for 45 minutes, and I thought I learned a lot from that. I was able to pick his brain some.
I always wanted to be like Miss Elizabeth from Mindy. We have some more comments over here from Hector. Did you have a chance to hold any titles in your time in wrestling?
No,
Hector, who are you asking me? Paul.
Not even in PAPW.
Not even PAPW. So, guys, as you're finding out, Paul Perez and I have a lot in common. I didn't hold any titles either. We have some more comments over here from Joel Bateman. I wanted to be a pro wrestler since I was a kid. Didn't pan out. This is an amazing story from Kelly Coleman. Thanks for sharing. I want to ask you some more questions here, Paul, because I want to turn up the heat a little bit over here. What do you find wrong today in pro wrestling? Not so much as far as the product is concerned, but students, because you're someone who's very qualified to talk about young students and young hopefuls who walk through that door with stars in their eyes. And I want to ask Paul Roma the same question after you answer this, Paul Perez. Do you find it to be etiquette? Is etiquette or lack thereof, is that the biggest concern you have with some of the young hopefuls who walk in the doors of PAPW?
Definitely. And I don't know if this was an issue back in our day, but egos, And, they're just starting out and they have these big egos. You have to kind of cut them down a notch sometimes. But luckily that doesn't happen very much at PAPW. But I've seen it throughout the independents.
Well, why is that though? And I'll ask Paul Roma and you. Why is it that you don't see that much in PAPW? What's the elixir over there?
You're looking at him right there, Paul Roma. He's being fortunate. No, but it's a family atmosphere. When they come in, they see how everybody else acts and they conform because that's what they see.
Right.
Roma, would you agree that that's an aspect that kind of drives you or irks you a little bit? The lack of etiquette that you're seeing from young hopefuls, maybe not so much in your school, but across the board in pro wrestling.
Well, yeah, when I go to these independent shows, not my students, of course, but I see these other kids, I call them kids, And, they're walking around with, their shoulders all puffed up and their head up in the air. And there's some that understand the etiquette, which is go over and introduce yourself to, a former wrestler or, whatever the case may be, and show respect. And then there's some that just don't. They don't get up out of their chair. They sit there and they just look at you as you come across the locker room. And they get the same in return. I don't go over to them and show them any respect. And, but again, Paul said it best. They conform, the people, the students in our school, because I don't think they really have a choice. That's the norm, right? If everybody's a gangster, then you become a gangster. And,
sure.
In our school, it's not like that. Everybody's family, so you become family.
Right. You either subscribe to that ideology or you're out the door, essentially.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
Going in. And that's nice. We like that. It's a beautiful thing. So
Kelly Coleman has a question for both of you. Do you think it has to do, where's this question? Do you think it has to do with parenting styles that teaches kids / youth etiquette?
It could be. It definitely could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. That's across the board, though. That's not just pro wrestling, but yeah, I mean, that's across the board. The other thing I want to ask you guys is this. Who are some of the young hopefuls now? I've never asked Paul Roma this question. Who are some of the young hopefuls now in PAPW that you think have a bright future in pro wrestling?
Wow. You can pick out just about any of the rookies. I mean, they're doing stuff now that back in the day we would go like, hell no. We got like Flash Waller, Kylon King, Marcel Williams, great storyteller, Maxim Morozov, the tag team Collusion together. You have Zafar and you have Morozov. Great storytelling in the ring by them, those two guys. The House of Pain. You really, I mean, it could be anybody.
You know what I love? And Paul, do you concur with that, Paul? Do you concur with that?
Yeah. These guys, they get it. And that's what's very, very important. They're humble. They get it. I had asked one of our first student to sign with MLW. I said to him, he'd come in, for practice. And I said, hey, let me ask you something. If Vince McMahon called you up tomorrow and said, I want you to work for WWE for free, would you go? And he said, absolutely, Paul, I'd go. Absolutely. I said, well, why? It's going to cost you money out of your own pocket and you're not getting paid. So he goes, because that's where I want it to be. And I said, well, we need to change that thought pattern, basically, because it's just not right. I said, you need to understand what your worth is.
Right.
And as he progressed and then MLW came on board and signed him, I had asked him that same question, after he started wrestling with us. And he turned to me and goes, absolutely not. I may not even work for them if they asked me to now. So he got a taste of it and he understands his value. Because, it's ridiculous to ever go and work for free.
It is, yeah.
For everybody when, they're multi-million billionaires, wherever they are. And they're not going to pay you. That doesn't work.
And if you're putting your body on the line, that's worth something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every day.
You're right, Paul. Both Pauls are right. I guess what I could do to just kind of shorten my responses, I could say you're right, Paul, and I'll be addressing Roma and Perez. So there you go. You're right, Paul. Just keep it like that for now. And guys, just speaking of condensed, let's talk about a career that was condensed. My own, it was condensed, and the reason why was because I didn't really receive the kind of tutelage I thought was essential. I told Paul Perez it was on-the-job training. Now, yeah, Ted Petty gave me my toolbox, and he did train me officially, but there wasn't a wrestling school. So it's so inspiring to know that there's still great schools out there that really don't prioritize turning a profit. And if anyone wants to look at the pay-per-view and see exactly how much you guys were charging, I thought that's amazing. Clearly, your objective was not to make money. Your objective is to put out a great product that reminds people why they love professional wrestling and why they enjoyed it in the first place. There are some comments over here. Value is important from Stuart Stone. Richard Holiday is living proof that PAPW breeds great talent. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. But WWAB is living proof why I breed great talent, because David Holiday, another Holiday, is with us. He's going to be joining us very soon. Of course, he said, David Holiday, listen, Hector, I don't know what you're trying to do over here, but you know what? All this anti-David Holiday stuff is going to bite you in the behind because I'm training David Holiday. And when he enters PAPW, he's going to give Richard Holiday a run for his money. He might even give Paul Roma a run for his money. Paul, do you believe that?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Eric is joining us. Good evening, Eric. Thank you for joining us. Guys and gals, I want to bring up one more question. I want Paul to kind of just answer this question if he can. Mr. Perez, what would you say if somebody had told you that pro wrestling would still be a part of your life when you exited pro wrestling? And how important is it for you? I guess it's a two-part question. Do you kind of preach the importance of an exit plan to some of the young hopefuls that maybe won't have a lifelong career in pro wrestling?
Oh, definitely, or to any athlete. I think it's very important to go to school and have a backup plan because lots of times it just, it's not in the cards for you. And that's usually more, that it happens and it doesn't,
Absolutely. Roma, would you agree?
Oh yeah, hands down. I actually, I preach that, and a lot of autograph shows that I go to, I preach that. People ask me, and I said, well, what are you doing now? Well, I'm in school. I said, well, good, get an education because it may not work out. Very few, make it, and not only that, how long are you going to make it? You could,
Sure.
You could get injured tomorrow, and you're all done.
You're all done. And there aren't some of the benefits that you can obviously attain from other sports in pro wrestling. So a lot of times you're on the shelf permanently with nothing to show for it. So an exit plan is so important. Ed, thank you for the comment there. I really appreciate that, man. And you know what? Before we have Paul Perez will be joining us in a couple of weeks with Mario Mancini and Big Steve Tracy when we have our PAPW panel. And we'll play a fun game that show as well called PAPW Draft. Stick around for that. But speaking of draft, a guy who I think is number one in everyone's draft pool is going to hit the stage right now and let Paul Roma and let Paul Perez know what he's been up to because he's been training really hard for his debut in PAPW one of these days.
What's going on, gentlemen? Great
How you
to
doing?
see you on this
Mr.
wonderful
Holiday.
Wednesday. Paul, what a pleasure to see you guys today. Avi, it's always a pleasure to
Thank
be
you.
in your presence. My man, how you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Good, you?
Doing all right, letting all this drama that's unfolding on TV kind of soak in and marinate, and man, got a lot of opinions about what's going on. Paul, I love it when you get on here and start speaking truth, man. It gets me pumped up and excited.
You know what Howard just texted me, David, right now?
What's that?
Howard says David Holiday's campaigning because in case you guys don't know this, we talk about this on the other shows as well, briefly, but the Green Room. What a show that's been. And a lot of surprise guests coming down the pike. People from the world of TV and film are set to make their debuts there. But David Holiday right now is trying to get the top spot of the Green Room. He's trying to host it. Now, he's under trial, and so is Mickey Doyle, and so is Howard Collado for negligence, for creeping out their interviewees and interviewers. So they're on trial. Mickey Doyle's trial comes to an end this coming Sunday. But Howard Collado seems to think that David Holiday's campaigning. Paul Roma, are you a David Holiday guy? Are you a Howard Collado guy? The world wants to know.
Well, I think they have to wait till the green room comes up, and then they'll get my answer.
Paul, what do you think based on you seem like a kind of guy, Paul Perez, that based on first impressions, you can size people up really well because you observe, you listen, you take things in. Paul Perez, what is your opinion on David Holiday and Howard? If you had to have a dog in the fight, who would it be?
Oh, my goodness. I would say Howard because he's also a musician.
And he's also a dog.
Thank you. Yeah. So he knows
I
talent.
thought the
and
title
muscle.
of this show was
Power.
Maintaining the Truth. Here, let's be honest.
Here we go.
Musicianship. It's all right,
Oh, yeah, so I
Are
mean,
you Frank Sinatra? I'm sorry.
I can
You bless
be.
us with your pipes.
look at everybody chiming in with these comments for the Green Room already. 100. David Holiday shows up and we get 12 more shares in about a
Michael
second.
Anthony, 171 shares more.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael knows. He knows. He knows what happens when I come on these shows.
It kind of has more to do with this over here than that, or that, whatever. I'm not sure which direction. Yeah, there you go. That thing.
All right, we're gonna bring David in about a minute and Howard also as well. But I do want to tell Paul Perez, thank you, number one, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You are a class personified, and really PAPW from the heart over here. This isn't shtick. You guys do so much for some of the youngsters out there, and for those that aren't privy to the wrestling schools, let me tell you, years ago when I was on this journey as well, before my knee got blown out, there's some horror stories, and you guys are the good guys. And it's so great to know that in 2021 there's a lot of good guys out there that are helping some of the young hopefuls aspire and achieve and prepare themselves for life. And that's something that they're going to take away and remind themselves and remind the people